Everyone wants more money, and everyone thinks they deserve a raise. There comes that time, whether it's through just timing, frustration, or various other reasons, that we need to finally ask for that raise. So how do we approach asking for a raise, and how can we negotiate to get the best raise possible? Today, we will answer both of these questions. We always need to start with timing. When you ask for a raise can often be as important as how well you negotiate for that raise. It's easy as employees to get caught up in our own situations and even tune out what is going on around us. For the companies we work for, they often don't have that luxury. There are numerous things that jockey for the attention of the companies we work for, whether that's internally with their employees or whether that's externally with the community, with the economy, with different political actions. Make sure you are aware of the situation around your company. If you work in a job that has seasonal highs and lows, you will want to wait until the high times to ask for that raise. A company struggling to turn a profit is going to be much less likely to approve a raise. Any occurrences that may have an impact on the company's overall bottom line will ultimately decrease your chances of a raise. So, ask when the time is right. We need to research salary information for our jobs and determine what exactly is our job. This has been the lifeblood of my career, so I have had many frustrating conversations around this very topic. Many people come requesting raises, having never looked into what that job typically pays. It's not uncommon to have the highest paid individuals in a job be the ones that feel like they are the most underpaid. And this is often because people just don't have a very good understanding of what their job is and what is typically paid for that job. Find out what other companies are paying people to do the same job as you. The secret sauce to this is not just checking salaries, but also job duties. Not every company uses jobs the same way. A data analyst, for instance, could be 5 significantly different roles in 5 different companies. So make sure when you're looking up salary information, you're not just looking by job title, but by what you actually do. People who know this trick often can get a leg up because at times they realize they're actually misclassified. They may be a data specialist, but in reality, they're doing accounting specialist work. And maybe that accounting specialist is actually a higher paying job than the data specialist that they're currently titled at. Additionally, even if you do determine that, hey, I am classified appropriately, but maybe you have several tasks that don't fit with those typical jobs, then those become a factor that you can use to negotiate. That you have this additional work that you take on that's not typical of the job that you're in. The last thing to remember here is that not every company is national either. A lot of free salary surveys that are available out there on the internet are open sourced from anywhere in the country. This means that the average pay that you find may be based on 5 people in California, 3 people in New York, 1 person in Mississippi, and 1 person in Florida. Now, if you work in Arkansas, that average data will likely be much higher than what you should actually expect. The reason for that is California and New York have high wages, and Arkansas is low in comparison. If you go to your boss with a California raise request in an Arkansas job, you may be shooting yourself in the foot before you've even had a chance to do the negotiations. Take into consideration where you work and what type of company you work for, as both will impact what your company would consider to be a reasonable raise request. Next, you'll want to determine a target range. Once you've completed all the research on the job and what typical pay is, you want to start identifying and narrowing down what range of pay you plan on targeting with your raise request. This is important because, as we mentioned, with the national reach of most free salary information, you will need to not identify any specific number, but rather a range that you would feel is acceptable. If you currently make $20 an hour, for instance, and your salary research shows a national average of $34 an hour, then your range should be from just above where you are currently to a reasonable maximum. If you live in an area where wages are generally higher, maybe you go all the way up to $34 an hour or even higher. Conversely, if you live in a smaller town or work at a local company, maybe you temper your expectations and top your range out at $27 an hour. You want to use this range for yourself only. This isn't the range that you want to negotiate out loud with your boss or your leaders, but you want to use it to kind of guide where your ultimate price will be. As you gauge the conversation and their receptiveness to possibly giving that raise, then you can start to identify where in that range is a reasonable request. If you go in there and right off the bat, they're pushing back and it doesn't feel like they're going to really want to do the raise, asking for a $7 an hour increase is probably going to kill any chances. You may want to just ask for $1 or $2. If, on the other hand, they're very receptive and they seem impressed with your sales pitch, then maybe you can get into those higher rates within your predetermined range. Don't get caught in negotiations for a raise with no idea of what type of money you are expecting. Also, have an idea of why you chose a certain amount so you can sell them on why it is reasonable. Far too often, people come requesting raises but have no idea what a reasonable amount is. They don't have an amount that they would like to get to. And the obscurity of the situation causes frustration on their manager's part, and it causes frustration with trying to determine where they should be. And a lot of times, because they're not sure, they come in with unreasonable expectations, and they often ask for rates that are over what even the max in the market would say they should make. So have a reasonable idea of what you need and be able to explain why you came up with that number. If you choose $27 an hour, make sure that 27 is reasonable, but also make sure you know why you chose 27. You also want to assess what you've done. If you've watched our video on the biggest mistakes people make when asking for a raise, then you already know how important this step is. I'll include a link to that video in the description for those who need to catch up. Do not go into the negotiations with a whole strategy revolving around how busy you are. This is a worn-out tactic and will likely have far less of a positive impact. Instead, identify ways you stand out, processes you've improved, training you have taken, duties you own that weren't in your original job description. You want to really bring to the table as many things as possible to show that not only are you good at your job, but that you've gone above and beyond and done well in those areas also. You'll also want to identify what other than money would suffice, if anything. Some companies, depending on their structure and their compensation practices, may counter with other incentives, but deny the raise. Is there anything else that you would accept if a raise is out of the question? Maybe you get offered more paid time off, an incentive bonus, stock options, or some other form of non-base compensation. Would these be sufficient? Many may be tempted to just accept these in lieu of a raise, just to get something out of the deal. While you certainly can do this, if the meeting seems pretty discouraging, then maybe you go ahead and you take the incentives they offer. But in general, I would encourage you to not, and instead ask what it would take to get that raise. Odds are, there's a reason they said no. And asking clearly what it would take can allow you to come back at a later time and ask again. And if you come back having completed what they have requested, it becomes much harder for them to turn down your raise request. If you take the incentives, on the other hand, it will be significantly harder to come back and ask for a raise again. The company will feel that you are ungrateful, and it may leave a bad taste in their mouth. If they give you stock options and 3 months later you're back asking for a raise, it's not the ideal look. And then lastly, and most importantly, is to use the research you've done to plan out a strategy and a presentation, and then actually practice. Decide what approach you're going to take, what skills you want to highlight, and any other information that you want to share, and then practice your put together presentation. I would go so far as to consider some counters that they may have and practice answering those. A good practice is to use friends and family, not just to hear and consult on the presentation. Ask them to provide questions and even pushback for you to practice responding to. If you have an intelligent friend who is a little more harsh and honest, they may actually be the perfect person for this role. Make sure that the bulk of your presentation or sales pitch revolves around what you bring to the company and ways you can benefit the company. Show them that you're on their team. Don't make it about you versus them, but rather you benefiting the greater team. The negotiation process for a raise is really about confidence and how well you can sell yourself. There isn't any major secrets that can trick people into giving you a raise, but if you are prepared and you come with a logical approach, you do make it harder for them to say no. In all reality, a large portion of why you deserve a raise was already put in place well before you decide to ask for a raise. The biggest factor to help you get a raise is the work you do day in and day out. If you are a good employee, then you already have a huge step up when it comes to requesting a raise. If you like this content and would like to see more videos like this, then please subscribe and click the notification bell so you're notified of any of our upcoming videos. We'll see you guys next time.